Hi everyone, welcome to the Monday.com session. Today we will be talking about low-code, no-code platforms, and we will learn together why and how you can open your platform for external developers. Couple of words about me. My name is Vlad Mystetsky and I'm originally from Ukraine and I live in Israel for the last 5 years. I joined Monday.com a few months ago as the Monday Apps team leader. And in Monday Apps team, we are building an infrastructure which converts Monday into building blocks and allow external developers to build new custom blocks on top of Monday. I love music and web technologies, and my biggest passion is to build platforms for developers, which I'm doing for the last 10 years, because I think that developers are the most interesting and demanding type of users. A few words about Monday.com company. Being a radically transparent company, we share our business performance with all of our employees, investors, and the general market. Monday.com is a hyper-growth company, growing at 2-3x revenues year over year. Today, we're at above $170 million in annual recurring revenue, and in the trajectory to end of 2020 on target of 235 millions. We have over 600 employees today, having started 2020 at 350. So our growth is really massive. And it's funny that when I was preparing for this presentation, I took this slide from the previous deck that was used in another talk around 2 months ago, and I had to update every number here to be at least 20% bigger than it was. And this is what hyper-growth company means. We have more than 100,000 paying customers from more than 180 countries from 200 plus verticals. Our customers come from all industries and sizes, from teams of 2 to teams of thousands, and about 70% of our clients are non-technical. Our customers heavily rely on Monday platform to run their projects, processes, and everyday work. Monday.com is a work OS where teams get their work done. You can run any project, process, or initiative more efficiently from whenever you are. Each team can create their own custom applications to fit their needs by dragging and dropping from dozens of building blocks to shape any workflow in minutes. So it's quick and flexible to build processes, integrate with your existing tools, and collaborate across team. So with this short background about Monday.com, let's talk about low-code no-code platforms and see what it means. So the agenda for today's topic will be next. So first of all, we will talk about what does low-code no-code platform mean? Why is it interesting, especially now? What was our journey in Monday.com of building low-code no-code platform? And the most importantly, how every one of you can start thinking and can expose your own platform for external developers. After the talk, we'll have enough time for Q&A session. So I will answer all the questions that you will have. So note them and send these questions for the Q&A. So let's start. So why is low code, no code so important for us today? First of all, we need to understand what is no code and low code and what is the difference between them. The distinction is mostly not about the need to write code or not, but more about the types of people using these platforms to build applications. No code is built for non-developer business users that without writing even single line of code can build enterprise-grade solutions. Low code, on the other hand, is for professional developers who will develop applications on top of the platform. Low code allows developers to focus on the business logic and not on the repetitive things such as building systems, packaging, releasing, infrastructure, monitoring, and so on. And because of the ability to develop reusable modules for the business, low code platform has an unlimited flexibility. Why is it interesting specifically now? The low code, no code market will grow dramatically in the next few years. While in 2018 it was a $4 billion market, look at the estimation for 2 years from now, more than $21 billion market size, which is a 5x growth. Right now, there are more than 200 vendors that market their products as low-code platforms. And in general, everyone wants to become a platform. One of the reasons for this is the pace that software development world is running forward and changing now. And if you want to change this fast and adopt your product fast, you should consider becoming a low-code, no-code platform as well. According to Gartner, which is one of the biggest IT research firms, the vast majority of companies will use low-code platforms in the near future. It means that now is the time to start understanding this trend and figure out what it means to each and every one of us. We understood the value of becoming a platform and made the strategic shift of becoming a platform for every business. So now I'd like to share with you our journey that we took here at Monday.com in transforming the Work OS into a low-code, no-code platform. This journey is our experience that you can use as an example for your case. Our low-code, no-code platform started around 3 years ago. It started from the very basics, but perhaps the most important one, product market fit for a platform. We were looking to provide the teams with intuitive visual project management platform that could also manage any business process and make it accessible to any team, even though without any technical skills. We started with the main component of our system, the board. Boards are the easiest way to streamline any workflow in minutes. Easy to use and change, flexible so you can add different columns and rows to it, and you can list in boards, projects, tasks, and any other types of information. This is a tool that people really love to use. And we learned that teams wanted to connect their projects and process it with external tools. So that was our next step. Our customers needed the flexibility to integrate with many different types of systems and data sources. So we opened an API. This enabled something which is called high-code solution that we as developers are all familiar with. This was an important step for our evolution, but it wasn't enough because it required a fairly big investment for customers to build solutions on top of the API. So as the next step, we started to build different customizable blocks on top of the platform. Customizable building blocks made our platform extremely flexible, and any customer is able to use drag and drop for the functionalities they need. Boards, forms, visualizations to quickly create the table-driven apps they need for their business. This is where the no-code stage really started. From 7 static column types, by thinking of the problem and scale, we created 20 more in an internal hackathon involving all the R&D. Boards became much more valuable to many more verticals and use cases. With over 40 different column types, now you can track and work with any type of data. In addition, we've built dashboards, which turn data into easy-to-use, easy-to-see visuals. They gather data from multiple boards and provide insights to leadership so that they can immediately identify bottlenecks, ensure teams are aligned to the same goals and KPIs, and create a culture based on the data-driven decisioning. The next step came workflow automations. We wanted to save valuable time for our customers and let the platform work for them. We achieved this by allowing teams to automate repetitive manual tasks so that they can focus on what really matters on making an impact. We created automation recipes so users can define what they need, and the platform can do the rest for them, again, without even line of code. We have a metric on how many user actions we saved with our automations, and right now this number is more than 400 million actions, which is really crazy. Our no-code solutions opened many opportunities for the customers to build solutions on top of Monday platform, but creating the no-code building blocks just by ourselves was still limiting. So we decided to open our platform even more with the low-code framework, which we called Monday Apps Framework. With the Monday Apps Framework, any developer can now build their own solution to any business need on top of the Monday Work OS. Building the Monday Apps Framework made our platform really limitless. We built the Monday Apps Framework during the past 8 months, and it was released in June. And apps added infinite flexibility to our platform that can now be used for any business case, similar to how apps are being used on mobile phones. Same device, but with many different capabilities. And it is really hard to find 2 smartphones with the same set of installed applications. So as a next step, we plan to build a marketplace where developers will be able to publish their applications and share it with other Monday customers and monetize them. So if we're looking in this flow and doing the recap of it, so we actually had the 3 main phases. First, we focused on product market fit, building a platform that brings real value for users. Next, a no-code platform using customizable building blocks, allowing non-technical users building apps on top of the platform. And finally, a low-code framework which added valuable layers to our product that unlocked new business opportunities. As an R&D of Monday, we don't always have the capacity to solve every problem for every client. And having a low-code platform gave us the opportunity to focus on what's really important to the core of the product, to the majority of our customers, and enable others to build their own solutions on top of our platform, either by building public apps and sharing them with other customers, or building private apps for the long tail of tailor-made niche solutions, developers can infinitely scale the capabilities of the platform without us as R&D even know about it. So now we understand the value of becoming a low-code platform and why you should consider to do so by yourself. So now let's focus on the last part of our journey, how to actually build the low-code solution. So let's think together how every one of you can expose your product and your platform to external developers that they can build their own apps on top of it. Let's start with the first step that we need to do. First of all, we need to understand what are the blocks that we want to give an ability to extend by other developers. It very much depends on specifics of your platform. You're good developers and you've built your systems being scalable, and you know the best what are the main pain points in your platform that you need to extend more and more internally, and you would want to expose this pain to other developers. It can be dashboard widgets, new types of entities, workflows, ticket views, data visualizations, or any other options which suits your specific product. For the inspiration, let's go over some examples of building blocks in different platforms. One of the examples of the block that developers can build in Monday.com is a dashboard widget. Every widget can get data from different data sources inside of the platform, extended with some third-party data, and display in some specific way. Another example of a low-code application is a Slack form. Imagine if only Slack and not external developers would be able to build these forms for integrating with thousands of different integrations and use cases. In this case, this is like only this, all the Slack R&D would do until the end of their lives. For example, in Zendesk, the side panel of the ticket can be an app. For example, this is an example of an integration of Zendesk with CRM system where you can, in one button click, create a lead based on the ticket. And even look at plugins in your browser. Every extension is a low-code application where browser is actually one of the most powerful low-code platforms that you use every day. As I already mentioned, think about your system. What are the parts which are volatile, and think about exposing them. Even not to external developers in the beginning, but for you internally to have better scalability and flexibility. After we understood what are the building blocks that we want to expose, we need to understand what each block can do. What is its interface of communication between the block and the system? Under which context it can work? It's a global block. It can work in the context of specific dashboard, of specific ticket, of specific job, and so on. And which level of freedomness we want to allow it to have. It's also very important to understand that from now on, we as R&D, as product, not controlling which features our product has. Every customer will have different set of features specifically for their needs. And we need to find a way of how to allow all these features to be discoverable in a usable way, and not to come to this awful example of thousands of buttons on the toolbar. There are a couple of different solutions for this problem. One of the possible solutions that we came into are feature stores, where feature can be categorized and searchable like a marketplace of feature. This allows a very good scalability and discoverability of features. There can be also other options. For example, Slack is using smart auto suggestions for specific apps when you're sending over the document of specific type. For example, if you're sending some PowerPoint presentation in Slack, it will show you the message. We have an app which can show the preview of this document directly in Slack. There can be also other solutions like some dynamic menus, action bars, and other UX options that fits the specific needs for your custom blocks. The second step will be to answer how we want to give external developers ability to build their app. We see here two main approaches. The first one is to provide some proprietary declarative way of building your app. For example, Slack forms are asking you to implement some specific type of JSON where you are describing the structure of the form. Like I want the form with a text field and 2 buttons and some dropdown. This option is making every app consistent and fairly easy to build, but it is very limiting for developers in the way how they want to implement their application. The second option is to give a developer ability to write their own code on any language. If we're talking about web, so it should be JavaScript compatible language, any framework, any tools, it'll actually give them the freedom of building an app in a way how they want. And we chose this direction because we feel that it allows developers to build much more robust and flexible apps for some specific use cases. But both options are available and have their pros and cons, and you need to consider which direction you want to take. But I think that this one is more challenging to implement, so let's stick to it and go with it. And now think about how we can design and implement such a solution. So the next step is to build the architecture of the solution, and let's build it together. So let's start that we have with our classical web application. Probably most of platforms that you have in general look like this. We have the front-end host application, which over the API is getting and changing data on its host backend. I'm calling it host application because it will actually host our third-party apps. So now we want to allow external application to inject itself to our host application. So what is the most naive solution for this? Let's add just a script tag to our host app, which will inject to the page the script from third-party domain, which contains third-party app. What is the problem with this solution? It is not secure. We always need to remember that third-party code can be malicious. And in this case, this code will have an access to the user session. It can get all the user's data. It can ruin your UI. It can get access to your code. In general, it can do whatever it wants. And usually, this is not the level of freedomness that we want to allow external developers to have. So what can we do with it? Let's wrap this third-party script that we're injecting to the page into the iframe. Iframe is a part of web standard and fully supported by all browsers, which allows you to run third-party code inside of your application in total isolation in a fully different context. So now app has the full isolation, but it's also not good because which value this application can have in the full isolation if it's not just an advertisement banner? So how it can actually get some data from our system and how it can communicate with the host application. So there is a solution for this as well. iframe can communicate with the host application via post messages, which is the safe method of exchanging serialized data between two different window objects, one window object in an iframe and one in the host application. So let's think now which types of communications we actually need. First of all, the application in the iframe will want to react to some of the user's actions in the system, like a new ticket was created, job was read, user moved to another page, new data came as a push to the UI. And it will need to listen to some of the events which are happening in the host application. This is important if app wants to be interactive in real time and in real time change its view based on the changes in the data of the host application. Also, in a lot of cases, application would need to perform some set of authorized actions. For example, open item card, navigate user to another page, ask for the global action confirmation, or anything else which makes sense to your platform, and it's something that needs to happen not in the context of the iframe, but in the global context of the system. Another super important thing for the app is to have an ability to get and change the data from the system via the API that host app backend is providing. And because host application is holding cookies for the user session, the application can send a specific message to it for asking to get some data, and host app can use existing session to get this data and provide back to the application also with a post message. We are calling this process seamless authentication because app doesn't actually need to implement any other type of authentication to retrieve data from our API, no oath or any other identity exchange mechanism. It just works seamlessly out of the box. More of that, because our host application is controlling the process, it can authorize an application to get and update only specific parts of the data based on the application's permission scopes. Seamless authentication and permission restrictions are very powerful because from one side, we want to allow app to get the data as easy as possible. But from other, we usually want to restrict an app access to the data if it doesn't really need it. For example, in Monday Apps platform, every app needs to define which specific scopes it needs to have, and we are limiting the API access based on it. In our case, it's boards read, users writes, account read, and so on. It's also similar to mobile phones. When you're installing an app, you are not expecting that this app will get access to all of your messages, photos, geolocation, and so on. And you want to give specific permission to this application to get this data. We can also provide an official SDK, which application can include to their code to simplify the way of communicating with the host app. In general, app can work without it as well. It is just an additional layer which encapsulates the post messages communication between an iframe and host application and provides easy to use interface for it. For example, our Monday SDK is very tiny and provides 4 main capabilities. First, its ability to perform API calls with seamless authentication, what we just discussed, ability to get data from the host application, ability to listen to changes from the host application, for example, listen to changes in filters and get the list of filtered items, an ability to perform execute actions on the host application, for example, open item card or navigate user to some page. And of course, in a lot of cases, application will also want to perform API calls to its own backend, which can be some third-party product which this app is integrating with. For example, in the case of Zendesk, it was some CRM system that this button, by clicking on this button, it will go to the CRM system and create something. Or just a backend with some additional storage or information that this specific app needs. In this case, if it's a third-party product application, it will probably need to implement auth process to authorize user in this service. So actually, what we have right now is the full working solution that we can start building apps on top of. So let's move to the next very, very important part of all this equation, which is API. When we started to build Monday Apps framework, we understood how important API is for low-code platforms, because it is actually the main gateway for the application to access the main asset of your platform, which is data. From now on, when we become a low-code platform, we need to treat our public API as a product, which actually includes a lot of things into it. First of all, we need to have a strategy of feature completeness of our API. So we will not have a case when platform has some functionalities, but it is not supported via the API. In our first external hackathon, when first beta testers of Monday Apps framework started to build apps, in the first hour, we've got a request on how we can subscribe a user to the board via API. And we figured out that such a basic capability wasn't supported by our API. And of course, we added it in an hour and it wasn't a big deal, but this gives us a good food for thought on how we are supporting our API roadmap. One of the solutions for it can be something what is called API first approach, when every feature is supported via the public API first, and only after it in the UI. In this case, you will not have a problem of API not supporting some specific feature at all, because every feature by design is supported by the API. And of course, you need to invest into your documentation. Protect your API with rate or complexity limiting, so developer will not be able to destroy and affect other customers of your system just by small bug with an infinite loop, which is bombing your API with requests. API should have at least the same uptime as your main platform, but better even higher, because there are a lot of other external things which are starting to be dependent on your API, and provide a good user or dev experience to use your API. So one of the examples, we are exposing our GraphQL API and providing an interactive API playground with built-in documentation of all the queries, mutations, and entities that the API is exposing. So actually, developers can easily play with the API and find out the relevant data without even opening a static documentation. The next step in our journey is to actually make your platform not just a development platform, but a really low-code platform. Think about the last 3 apps that you've built and how many repetitive things you had to do. UI components, UI framework, how to host my code, where to store my data, how to deploy it, how to do a version control, how to keep backward compatibility. And now think about thousands of developers which are building apps on top of your platform and have to do the same repetitive things again and again, and you will understand the scale of the problem. So what we want to do is we want to reduce the friction of developers and make them focus on building their app's business logic, so they can bring an impact instead of building the repetitive infrastructural work. You also need to provide developers an easy way to start with something working. Usually, we as developers like to get something working and then find out how to make it to what we want, like Stack Overflow-driven development, and not figuring out from documentation about every single API and every single class and how to combine all of this together. In Monday, our goal is to create a basic Hello World app in less than 5 minutes. To do so, we can use different techniques. For example, we can have a wizard which will guide you through some specific steps. You can have some CLI tool which will automatically create an environment for your local computer, and you don't need to do 10 manual steps of downloading some code and then npm install, npm run, and then it doesn't work on Windows and so on. Easy app preview capabilities, good logging and debugging capabilities. So something that I can start easy. So our goal is to provide the easiest onboarding experience as possible. Another thing that you need to do is to open source as much as possible the code for your example applications, which are using different capabilities of the platform. So developer can find the best which suits their needs and they can start from it. We exposed a few apps which were built during our internal apps hackathon and was exposed to all Monday users. So actually every developer can take a look how the apps that they're using day-to-day in Monday are actually built inside. Also consider of creating the one big, it's called kitchen sink application, which is the showcase of all the possible capabilities of the platform. And in some cases, it can be very helpful to start learning your development framework from there, just like to get this big application and then see in the code, cut the things that you don't need and get only the features that you as developer really need for your app. Consider building the CLI tool, which is usually becomes one of the most important tools that your developers will use. It can do a lot of different things. For example, it can scaffold a new project based on the template and run it automatically on your computer. It can pack and deploy your application's code, which is crucial if application developers will want to implement automatic CI/CD flows. It can do a static code analysis for preventing security issues and many, many other things which can make your developers' life easier. And of course, we need to have a very solid documentation, which is easy to use. I think all of us remember the difference in experience of working with technology which has great documentation and the one which has a huge documentation with thousands of pages that you don't know how to navigate through. You don't know how to find relevant information. And most of the articles are not up to date. And every second example of code that you're trying to use is not working. And you need to figure it why. And it's a new framework for you, so you actually don't know how to even debug it. And all of this is creating a lot of friction for your application developers. So invest your time into documentation as much as possible. Another very important part for every development platform is the community. It's very important that it will be active and all the questions will be answered as fast as possible. Because first of all, it gives the feeling for developers that when they will have an issue, they have a place to get support if it's needed, which gives developers the confidence that they can succeed with your framework. And also, it is the good way how you can scale your abilities to support your product. So after our first hackathon, a couple of developers became super active community champions, and they're actually helping and answering the huge amount of questions, sometimes faster than I can answer. I'm going and like all the threads have answers from these champions. And actually at some point, the community will become almost fully self-managed, which is awesome. And the last step is something that we need to think about, how we can bring more developers to our platform. So we need to consider that we are not a B2B or B2C company anymore. We are also becoming a B2D company, business to developers. And we need to acquire our new customers, which are developers. First of all, you need to give the clear incentive to developers why they will build something on top of your platform. It can be different things. It can be monetization. It can be user acquisition. It can be your brand name that they want to be associated with. It can be creating a synergy value for users or anything else. But without an incentive, no one will invest in building an app. Another thing is that you need to start building dev relationship and dev success functions in your company, which will be responsible for both bringing new developers and making them succeed from the day one until the production deployment of their app. Another important thing are solution architects, which will be able to help partners and developers to understand better your product, understand the product that this app, for example, wants to integrate, and finding the right way to solve some specific use case. And also all other public activities. So for example, we are organizing different events, monthly webinars, hackathons, run competitions, and participate in public speaking activities. This is why I'm here. And in general, we are practicing all of these things from the first day without having DevRel, Dev Success, solution architects, meaning that the whole team is doing all of this stuff. But then when we want to start scaling this, we can start getting the people for every of these functions. And as an example right now, until August 31st, we're running the Monday Apps Challenge, where you can build an app on top of Monday Apps platform and win the prize, which is Tesla X, and also a lot of other prizes, including zero gravity flights and PS5s when they will become available. So this is an example how you can give an incentive for developers to start building apps on top of your platform. So let's do a recap on what we've learned. We understood what do we want to extend and which building blocks we want to have, how we want to extend them, how to build an architecture for this solution, how to make your API great, and how to bring developers to build apps on top of your platform and how to make them happy. It can sound complex and a bit scary that you need to build all of these and like go through all of these steps, but it is actually something that you can do and should do iteratively, step by step, as any other projects or product that we're building. We at Monday launched this framework after 2 quarters of small team of 3 people working on it. And of course, there is a long way to go forward with it, but you can ramp up in a pretty small investment. Start small. In the first version, you can expose it not for external developers and not for all developers in the world, but start with your internal development. Start doing the DevRel and solution architecture by your own and not hiring people for this. And add more building blocks and capabilities in the future. So start small and start building it tomorrow. Start thinking about it tomorrow. Okay, maybe not tomorrow, but on Sunday, but anyway, it's something that you can start doing because it really has a lot of value for you. So thank you very much. And now we can go to our Q&A session. So please send your questions and I will be happy to answer them.